Everybody. Welcome to our June farm visit. We've got Jeremy Savage, the farm consultant, and Peter Hancock, farm manager, here to talk to you this afternoon about what's been happening on the farm and what we've got planned for winter, as well as looking at the finances. So if you want to take it away, Peter?
Yeah, so obviously the season finished. We dried cows off last Thursday. All cows received blanket dry cow and teat seal. So we had about 60 cows that got long acting on the herd test that exceeded the somatic cells, and then the rest just got short acting and dry cow. We did it at Thursday morning milking, and then the cows were trucked away that day to winter grazing. So our dryland winter grazing this year didn't quite yield as much as we had hoped because of the dry autumn that we had. So we had to split the cows a share, and we sent 180 away to Sheffield for winter grazing as well. Season finished up. We finished up on about 505 kgs milk solids per cow for the season. Obviously the autumn pulled a bit off us because it was a bit dry but short of feed, and we did have to feed about 100 kgs of dry matter per cow extra through that autumn to keep them going than what we had budgeted on. So quite a tough autumn, but cows are on once a day from early April through to dry off. They did put on quite a bit of condition through that once a day period. We had the condition score just about a week before we dried off, and they came back at 4.9 condition score average, and there were only 39 that were below 4.5 condition score.
So Peter, that once a day, that had the rationale for it. We had 3 or 4 things coming at us once. Feed budget was under pressure. Silage was a bit lean, and COVID coming at us with trying to separate the staff, but which was the final straw. Why we decided to go once a day, but what was your did it drop the demand, and did it help out the feed budget?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it didn't drop demand. It took a wee while to drop demand off them, but they eventually dropped off, and yeah, so production sort of came back more than what we normally be doing for April and May, but the cows did transition well, weight on their backs.
So Peter, last month we went through the impact of cow condition and how you're wintering cows, and which is saved quite a bit of money. This season with the cows that fat, are we able to ease back on the diet apart from the Sheffield cows and save money that way with what we've lost?
Yeah, so it's quite fortunate actually they are in good condition because that light land's still quite tight for feed, and we're managing to winter 255 there. We would normally winter sort of the 580, and it's just quite low yield on that crop as well. So we're on grass and rape at the moment, and it hasn't yielded too well. So quite fortunate we've got quite a few fats that only need sort of minimum 10 kilos of dry matter a day. So we've got 134 fats there and 40 lights, and then we've got a mob of 77 that just need to put on about half condition score. Yeah, and then so obviously that's reflecting in the amount of feed that we're buying. But the downside is we did have to send 180 away to another grazing block that we found at late notice, and they're unfortunately just getting offered 14 and at a set price.
Clear, I can't share screens. I haven't got the ability to share screens.
How about that? Does that work?
Yep, super.
Cool.
So, Peter, we've just got a bit of a breakdown. We use Farmax for LUDF, and we've been using this for about 5 years now. 6 years worth of data, so it gives us a good feel for how the farm's gone. So this is the FarmX data that's up on your screen at the moment. So it's a calibrated file. As Peter alluded to before, appreciate it's quite a bit of data that's up there. So we've got 160 hectare farm, stocking around 3.5 cows to the hectare. Peak milk this year at 555 cows. We knocked off 281,000 kilos when the budget was 275. So we're beating the budget. And that came out at 507 kilos of milk solids a cow, 1760 kilos of milk solids a hectare. Pasture eaten, that is feed that goes down the cow's throats, that came in at 15.1 tonne dry matter per hectare, which for 172 kilos of nitrogen to the hectare is a pretty good result. Typically, we're seeing people needing to use 250 to 300 kilos of nitrogen a hectare to get that type of feed harvested. Lincoln University is at a good spot to grow grass, but that needs to be complemented with good pasture management from Peter and the team to get that feed down the cow's throats as well. That's just a bit of a diagram in terms of how the season's gone, and this is the top graph we have there is the milking diet for the cows. The middle graph is the lactation curve, and then the blue dots are pasture covers. So as you can see, we just used silage sparingly in the springtime, and we had some pretty fantastic growth rates through August and September to get to that. Peter, from memory, we only had 28 cows calving in September, didn't we? 25 or 28. So it was a very, very tight calving spread.
Yeah. 60 from September.
60 from, yeah, so 60 hours. So 90% of the cows had calved before the end of August, so it was a thumper. And that's come through with a lot of milk coming in, which has helped us with a bit of resilience this autumn. That autumn that Peter referred to before is just shown with a big lump of pale green. That's silage feeding that's going on through from started in February and weren't able to turn off the silage wagon right through the autumn. Normally we get an opportunity to ease back on the silage this season, but we weren't so fortunate this year. So quite a bit more silage than planned had gone in this autumn. The lactation curve going in underneath there, so a really strong peak sitting at 2.3 kilo peak, and this is across the whole herd. And you'll notice that we haven't fed any grain, any palm kernel to achieve that peak. So just highlights what cows can do on fantastic quality grass. And these are 490, 495 kilo cows, aren't they, Peter?
Yeah.
So a really good peak and held it very, very well through November. A bit of a glitch mid-December, but that got rescued over the Christmas time with a bit of topping and mowing and getting the focus on feed quality. Lactation curve was going very well until you can see where the COVID cases started kicking in as well. And that was around the call to make going onto once a day. Once a day was around that 23rd of March, Peter?
Yeah, it must have been, close, somewhere around there, yeah. So
that first dip you can see there is around the 23rd of March. You can see the cows dropped off from about 1.75 to 1.5, 1.7 to 1.5 when we first went once a day. And then another sort of dip come sort of mid-April as we started to put the brakes on the season and started to push out the rounding as well. And then, just as it ended up in the media, we sort of limped to the end of the season. But success where success is due. 510 kilos a cow, a pure grass-based system. That's a pretty good result, Peter. And not many people are able to do that on a grass-based system. As we've discussed at Focus Days, we've got a fantastic quality herd. F12s and very, very tight around that as well. There's not a lot of variation in terms of the herd around its genetics, genetic type around Friesians versus crossbred, so it's an F12 herd. Well-managed pastures in terms of, Peter always makes sure there's feed in front of them, and then any excess when covers get too high are always have been topped out. How often did we mow the farm this year, Peter?
We did about 270, 280 hectares in total.
Yeah. So the farm was mowed 1.5 times through the season.
Yep.
The bottom graph there, as you can see, the average covers so starting with a very high cover at 2,600. Now, one of the key things that needs to be done is driving the pasture cover down to 1,900 on the 1st of June. I think you're about 10 or 20 kilos out this year, weren't you, Peter? We're 1920 or 1930?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's done deliberately by Peter and the team in terms of driving that cover quite low. And the reason why the cover is driven so low is that the farm grows quite well during the winter. It tends to grow through 10 kilos a day, and we end up with an average pasture cover of 2,650, 2,700 if we're not too careful. Feed quality with those high covers can be a bit of a challenge in terms of getting cows to peak well. Most of the season we ran with an average cover of 23s, 2400s, hence the topping mower needs to be used. They're quite high pre-grazings, which we do get away with the tetraploids compared to a diploid farm, but are having to use the topping mower strategically just to handle these high covers going through November and December, especially with the sea heat coming up. Feed quality wasn't a problem this autumn. Average covers dropped down from to 21 to 2200s. Probably got to the point where we did drop covers and knocked around our growth rates a wee bit there for a while as well. So until we got aggressive with trying to get the silage back in. How's that for a summary of the season, Peter? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, pretty good. Yeah, that autumn was quite difficult. I think we sort of finished nitrogen sort of mid-March or 20th of March, and it really showed up in sort of April, May that the farm was really low in nitrogen. But because it's so dry, I think, and just the cold and dry, just the stress, it sort of emphasised it quite a bit more this autumn. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the supplement use. We knocked out, probably including feed made on farm, close to 460 kilos a cow. Generally, we tend to normally use between 300 and 350. And as you can see, most of the damage was done through April when we had to feed high quantities of feed to get through to the end of the season. So for the month of April, 5 kilos of dry matter a cow was fed, which is a bit more than we normally fed, and that's coming through in the cost structures as well. That's our lactation curve compared to the previous year, and a good on kilos of milk solids per hectare. So we even peaked higher than the season before than October. So right through from 1st of November, the farm had that bit of a buffer of 1,500 kilos a day. 1,500 kilos, 2,000 kilos of milk solids, which we managed to take right through to the end of the season. For many days, as you can see there, the peak total production on the farm was within 1 or 2 kilos of the previous seasons as well. So certainly quite a good repeatable result. We just got to get on top of what happened in the autumn and try and avoid that happening in future seasons. What we have now presenting now is just some how the cost structures and how the performance of LUDF has gone relative to our client base. This is McFarlane Rural Business's client base. We've got 47 odd farms in this analysis. It's just a bit of a rough and ready sort of gauge. We will fine tune these numbers and get a bit more accuracy with dairy base later on in the seasons when the balance of farms can get their results in now. So this is based on revised results until the end of April and the budget for May. So that's how we've been able to get these numbers up so quickly. We like to do this now with our client base because it gives us a quick chance before we put a dry cow tube up the cows' udders to make sure that we've got our stocking rates and farm systems right for next year, and it gives us a bit of a chance to reflect on how things are going for the season. So our client base, McFarlane Rural Business client base, there's 5 farms from Takaka. The bulk of them are in Canterbury, including Naitahu. and Central Canterbury, right down to South Canterbury as well. And they go from the sea to the foothills. So 1525 kilos a cow for a client base, 1750 for LUDF, 460 kilos a cow. So this isn't a typical average farmer, but we do note that the per cow production this year has lifted across our client base, and that's partially due to a lot of cows staying on longer with this COVID and culling issues. 12.8 tonne feed harvested versus LUDF's 15.2, so it just highlights how well the farm goes. And we're doing 586 kilos of cow supplement. Lincoln's done 440 this year as well. Probably breaking down to the profitability, average of our client base, one of the key ones we have in here is our operating expenses, which is the second from the bottom. So the average operating expenses for our client base is 446. Lincoln this year has nudged up to 417. We thought we were on track at $3.80, which we, and as low as $3.60 with our December review. Got reviewed up to $3.80 in March, but the cost of this silage at the tail end of the season and a bit of extra R&M has been quite significant. So sure, we got a bit, as I mentioned before, we picked up another 7,000 kilos of milk solids. We're up to budget, but that's coming at a cost at the tail end in terms of extra feeding of silage. Need to also point out those operating expenses exclude depreciation, but they include adjustments for wages of management runoffs, as you expect to see in a dairy-based analysis. 446 too, last year our client base was $4.38, so we've seen a slight lift in cost structures. Some of the things that stand out for Lincoln University, labour costs are slightly high, 89 cents versus 83 with the client base. We're in a bit of a funny dead spot around scale here, 550 cows. We have 3.5 staff members accounted for in the LUDF, even though 4 are employed. We do take out 1 staff member for demonstration purposes. Animal health and breeding, that's a bit higher on, especially on a per kilo milk solids basis. We need to break down this a wee bit further, but certainly our breeding program, I'd suggest is the main culprit there. We don't do any bulls. A lot of people can have their bulls tied up in their trading account, so it doesn't show up in the animal health. We should in time see extra stock sales as a consequence of that as well, although it didn't happen this year for a couple of reasons, but we're looking forward to seeing that lifting. I think the other challenge around the animal health too is just around being a demonstration farm. We do probably a wee bit more of extra testing, etc., than you would do with other farms. We've been getting on top of yonis, and last year we got on top of our staff as well. So we did see quite a saving, didn't we, Peter, around staff and testing mastitis this year, about $3 or $4 a cow once we culled it out.
Yep, no, definitely. Yep.
Feed and grazing, be careful with our client-based data. That feed and grazing, sometimes we have runoffs and those sorts of things, so that gets captured in other areas like fertiliser, etc. But Lincoln was $1.45. It has lifted at the tail end, as I mentioned before. We fed another 150 kilos a cow of silage, which added another 40,000 to the budget at the last minute, and that is added 14 cents per kilo of milk solids to our cost structure for our April-May. Repairs and maintenance, that's also slightly high. $522 a hectare. I mean, everything's in here. We haven't pulled anything out because it's Lincoln University Dairy Farm. And it is a bit of a showcase farm. It's also a slightly aging farm as well. The cow shed's 18 years old now, Peter?
20, yep.
20. Oh, that's good. Oh, so it's going to be able to give it a key this spring. So, and that certainly comes through with higher R&M on the shed as well. And most other areas of spend, we do charge overheads from the university to the dairy farm. most other overheads are in line with what we expect compared to the rest of the industry. What is noticeably higher here, Peter, is the costs of power this year were quite a bit higher as well. My client base doesn't necessarily have all of the irrigation and the electricity, but last year we ran the dairy farm for $300 a hectare. It's up $110 a hectare this year with quite a bit of extra irrigation and more irrigation pump house going on this year as well. So in terms of where LUDF is sitting at the moment, this is, as I pointed out before, this is around feed harvested. So that's LUDF's dot there relative to the client base. It is one of the highest feed harvested farms in the region. We've got a couple of other farms which have given LUDF a run for its money. We've got 4 other farms up there mixing it in with LUDF this year. But I would point out that those farms are using about 280 to 300 kilos of nitrogen. And as per last week, these farms are really going to be pulled back a wee bit around what they can do with feed harvested. So, you know, the 10 to 1 response, we can expect these farms to come back at 1.2 tonne, which may actually fall in behind Lincoln again as well, because Lincoln's only using 172 kilos of nitrogen this year. So that's the feed harvested and how well Lincoln's going. Operating costs per kilo milk solids versus profitability. When you look at Dairy Dairy-based data and Dairy NZ data from the economist team, you always find a pretty good relationship between operating costs and profitability. So here's Lincoln University, they're sitting at 414. We would like to have seen it probably sitting above, we're more like 380, 390. And we've got to put our thinking caps on around R&M and some of those sorts of issues over the next wee while. But at the end of the day, there's no, no hiding from the fact that the cost structures are a real key drive to our profitability. We normally see a tighter relationship than what we're showing here from this year from our client base, and certainly the $7.30 payout this year has disrupted this one. Normally these dots are very, very close to the line for, as cost structures drive profit, but it's been a bit looser this year. The other thing that is interesting here too is we have a couple of dots that stand out. These are farms that have adopted a beef trading regime. So their cost structures are quite high because they're leasing land. That land is included in the lease costs, but they're successfully involved in trading and finishing off their cattle that come, so no longer have bobby calves. So, although I would say that some other farms in here also do the same business plan as them, and they are not really getting the profitability sorted just yet. So be wary with that one. Milk production, impact of profitability on milk production is Lincoln University Dairy Farms dot right on the line. So this year, milk production per hectare at a high cost structure has had a bit of an impact on profitability. We don't normally see that. We normally see quite a scatter of data around that. And if I run that number at a $4 cost structure, it becomes a pure shotgun blast as well. So certainly acknowledging this year with a high payout, we're seeing a reasonable trend there. The other challenge we've got after the last week's news was restrictions coming in on nitrogen is going to be the ability for some of these farms to operate at super high per hectare performance. But I think this is a graph for them to take heed of, because you can see we can pull production back at sort of 1700s and 1800s, and profitability is not too far off the market. Still sitting up at these high payouts around that $6,500, $7,500 a hectare with a lower footprint as well. So yeah, and this is just highlighting the resilience of the dairy industry at the moment from what we see within our client base. These are good performing farms, but we've got probably the key line there is our break-even cost structure. So break even, to calculate your break even cost structure, we start with our farm operating expenses or farm working expenses if you're dealing with straight cash. We add on our debt servicing, which has come off over time from 7% down to, and we've used 4% for this exercise, for farms that aren't overly geared and have a reasonable margin with their bank. Depreciation, plant replacement and developments, typically around 30 cents a kilo milk solids. Drawings or management wages over and above management wages, 20 cents for dividend. Principal, we've applied principal the last 2 years, which has lifted our break even. Stock sales is also taken into account, so 46 to 50 cents. So we're now seeing a break even across our client base, sitting more like 580, 590 to 580. And with some pretty solid milk prices the last couple of years, looking at typically sort of surpluses of 40 cents last year. The $1.40 is going to take another 4 or 5 months to come in with the retro payments going on and the tally in there as well. So it just highlights in terms of where the resilience of solid performing farms are. That table will be up online after this webinar. I'd encourage you to bang in your own numbers there to just see how resilient your business is. What sort of payouts can you handle, especially with all the things that are going on around the world. Quite a lot of speculation on payouts this year, which range anything from $5.40 to $6.50, depending on what coloured bank you'd like to have a look at for your forecasts. Cool. Yeah, how are we going there, Claire? Got any questions coming in?
Good, yeah, no, it doesn't seem that any questions have come through either here or on the Facebook. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you very much, Jeremy. You got anything else or?
No, we'll sort it.
Cool. Well, yeah, that's it for us for today then. And we will be back next week with Garth Stern from LIC, who will be discussing LIC's breeding program, as well as what we've got planned for the 2021 season on LUDF.